Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart and it's time for another epic revolution painting tutorial, and this time it's tiny Native Americans. They are there. They're just tiny.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems, and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description.
I was very much spoilt for choice with what to do for my second painting tutorial to do with the Warlord Games Epic Battles Revolution release. Warlord have very kindly sent me all the frames so I could pick and choose. I've already done the Continental Americans, but I painted a lot of red coats and I've painted a lot of blue coats, and I thought it'd be fun to do something slightly different, so I opted for the Native American Skirmishers. I've assembled them all on the base. It would be easier to paint individually, but this is an epic army, literally. The last thing you want to be doing is painting these models individually. So I've put them on a base ready to go, and I've primed them black. And now I'm doing what I love to do with these, which is a Zenithal prime, mostly from the top down with an airbrush, white over the black, a little bit from the sides, creating a grayscale kind of miniature, which gives you lots of variation in the shadow, which really takes contrast style paints really well. If you don't have an airbrush, just spray with white. You can still copy the rest of the tutorial. Next up, I've got my dry palette here and some dry brushes and some white star from Tooth & Coats. Any white paint will do, use your favourite. I always use the dry palette to actually put the paint directly on, and this is a little bit of sponge from Knott's Hobbies, which is good for moistening your dry brushes just a touch so that you don't get that chalky mark. I'm rubbing most of the paint back off onto that dry palette, just testing on my thumb there. I can't really do circular motions very well on these very tiny miniatures, but I'm just trying to pick out all that detail without only those horrible streaky brush marks you get if you've got too much paint on when you're trying to dry brush. This really boosts that grayscale look, picks out all that detail, so when you put those contrast paints on in a moment, they look like they've been highlighted and shaded already. First up, I'm starting with the flesh, and this is Contrast Dark Oath Flesh here, and it's a really nice kind of warm brown undertones to it with enough reds in there as well. I find here that if I put enough on so it runs into the recesses, but not so much that it's pooling everywhere on those flat surfaces, you get a really nice effect that you don't necessarily have to highlight afterwards. And what I'll do here is go and do the base layer on all of the miniatures, all the different colours first, so you can see what it'd be like for a quicker paint job, and then I'll go along and do extra highlights later on in the video. But what you can see here is I'm just working my way through all the flesh areas for all the different miniatures. What you find is, because we've done that Zenithal highlight and used the dry brush to really pick out that detail, they look pretty good already. It's quite hard to see on the screen here because the white really blows out under the camera, but these do look a lot more grayscale in the naked eye, and if you sort of turn them upside down you can see all the black and shading underneath already. And now the first of the colours. This is Agarash Dunes, which is a kind of yellowish bone colour. It's quite rich, but desaturated as well. I didn't want anything to look too bright in yellow. I'm using the studio paint scheme as a bit of a guide here to sort of lead me, but I'm not following it 100%. And they have yellow on quite a few of the clothing. I've gone for this because it's slightly more desaturated. I don't know if that's more realistic or not, but I quite like the way it looks. So just a section of their trousers in this colour, and they all have bags as well, and I've decided to go for the same colour throughout the group. After that we have Contrast Skeleton Horde, which is the less vibrant, bit lower in pigment bone colour in this range. It's a really nice base if you're doing that kind of creamy white. I'm covering, again, quite a lot of the miniatures have belts or straps around their centre. This just gives a slight bit of variation. Now it is very close to that Agarash Dunes colour, but when we highlight afterwards, I'm going to use two different colours to highlight the two different types of paint, and you get a different effect at the end. So it's one of those kind of wait and see things. Again, just picking out certain areas on some of the miniatures, leaving other bits blank because we're going to add a few more colours in. This is a Sermon blue. It's quite a bold, striking blue, and I think it's perfect for the guy in the centre, much the way the Warlord have done for their studio paint job, and it makes him stand out, makes your eye draw towards him. So I wanted to use a similar kind of colour. And again, like I said, I'm not copying exactly, but in terms of most of the colour placement, I'm taking my guide from that studio paint scheme. Following this up now with some contrast Blood Angels Red, which you may have seen before if you follow a lot of my epic tutorials. This is the base for most red coats in all of the different tutorials I've done. And this chap here has got a red top coat on, so I'm going to be using this for that base. It's nice and bold, runs into the recesses really, really nicely, really pops and stands out, and perfect for this. Now on to Orc Flesh to pick out some more variation in clothing on these skirmishers, and these are on there. I'm guessing they're not really trousers, they go from the knee down. There's going to be a proper name, and I'll let someone in the comments do that. I've not gone and googled that to find out. Maybe I should have done, but again, this is a nice mid-tone, fairly vibrant green, and it's perfect for these kind of miniatures in this scale because you really want them to pop and stand out on the tabletop. This is Contrast Cygor Brown. It's one of my favourite colours in the range. It's a really deep, rich brown with some reddish undertones, and I'm using this for all the wood areas on these miniatures, which is of course the rifle or musket stocks. In fact, I'm covering most of them because I'll add a little bit of metal on them afterwards, but also the handle of a couple of the small tomahawk axes, and then also their shoes, their footwear as well. It may have been a lighter colour, but I think it works out quite nicely on the base. And what I also quite often do at this stage is paint well beyond the feet and cover over the whole base, so it's already in a dark colour. These paints flow really easily, and it means that when you add the basing textures later on, you won't have any white showing through. At some point you're going to have to paint them in a dark colour. For some reason I just tend to do it now. On to the final parts of the base coat now. We have Contrast Black Legion, and we're literally talking hair here. There's not much hair on show either. Some of it's hidden behind headdress and feathers and things like that, but a few little spots of black here to pick out. The start of the highlights, this is two thin coats, ambush yellow. It's got a slightly desaturated bone-ish colour to it, so this is what's going over the Agaras dunes, so that kind of slightly more yellow tone of contrast base layer rather than the skeleton horde. So I'm just using this as the base highlight for those, and again, once we highlight white on top of the skeleton horde in a moment, you'll see how they differentiate enough to stand out. It's just enough to pick out the detail of the miniatures is pretty much where I'm following here, so some little dots along the cross straps. I'm just picking out where the folds of the fabric are catching the light, and it just seems to do enough to draw the eye and make it pop and stand out. And here is that white highlight. This is two thin coats again, Trooper white, but again, just use any of your favourite whites. Going back in, there's less areas of this, but going back in and painting exactly the same way, focuses on those upper folds of the fabric and just lightening them up a bit, and it really just tidies it all up and makes it pop and stand out. For the blue, we're going to use two colours. We're starting off with witching our blue and just doing that first layer of highlights. Just as I said, this is very close to that base layer in some respects. So where it's a little bit thinner, it almost darkens it down. So I'm just using it to tidy up a little bit and give a nice even base layer before we move on to the next part, which is two thin coats of Leviathan Blues, part of the same triad actually, and again just some slightly thinner lines, really picking out where those top highlights would go. Again, this guy's front and centre is where your eyes will be drawn, so I wanted to make sure that blue looks quite nice and quite striking. For the red, sticking with two thin coats, we have Demon Red. I'm just using the one single colour here. This works perfectly for it. Same principles again, following the lines in the fabric, the edges of those fabric that really sort of sticks out and will catch the light, focusing on the elbow, that kind of thing, and it just works really nicely, makes that red really pop and stand out. For those green areas, we have two thin coats Goblinoid Green, exactly the same processes and principles as before, some nice neat thin lines just to really catch where the light is hitting. And for the Cygor Brown areas of contrast, we've got Boar Hide from two thin coats. Same again, just catching those top areas where their light is hitting, just to make them pop and stand out and look a little bit more interesting. To highlight the skin, I have got two colours here. We've got Aries Flesh, which is going to do the bulk of the work, and then Pale Flesh, just to give it a little push in certain areas when we need it. They're both on the wet palette, and I'm just really focusing on the tops of the heads, the foreheads, and they've obviously had their hair shaved mostly, so there's a lot of light catching there, but also the noses, the bridges of the cheekbones, and then some of the guys are pretty stacked, I'll be honest with you, maybe a little bit too much. They've definitely been down the gym and drinking their protein shakes, but you can really work on those muscles, and I'm using the Aries flesh to just tidy that up and enhance those a little bit. And then afterwards we go in with that pale flesh, and it's just little dots here and there on the ends of the nose, a little bit more on the foreheads and things like that. For the few metallic areas, we have Sokote silver and plate armor, neither super bright, but just kind of bringing out the edges of the blade on the axe there, the tomahawk, just with the brighter silver. But first of all, the base coat, the Sokote's silver, just down the barrel and a little bit on the blade of the axe, and then just a little touch of that top highlight just to make it pop a little bit, but nothing too much. Now it's for some war paint, and returning to the contrast Blood Angels red and the two thin coats Demon red, and we're just painting across the eyes and a little bit onto the forehead on a couple of the Native Americans, and then we're following back up with a quick highlight of the Demon red afterwards, just again to make it pop and stand out a little bit more. And then for a final touch, we're heading back to the contrast Black Legion and just painting that across a couple of the eyes as well, for that thin strip kind of war paint that covers right across their eyes. Looks pretty cool, and again just really finishes these miniatures off. And we're pretty much done now. It's just time to do the basing. So I'm actually using some AK Muddy Ground diorama effects basing paste here. But if you'd like to see how I do a lot of my bases, I've very recently done a video, and I'll pop a link in there now. It shows you quite a few different recipes, and you can mix and match them as well. But it's using that kind of basing texture, using some oils and enamels on the bases. Quite a few different products, but they look great afterwards, and it's all really easy to follow along. I like to use pigments on the bases as well, just brush them in. I've recently been using some AK ones which are really great. They stick in the detail, you just blow the excess off, you don't need to do anything else with them. And of course my favourite brand of 2mm tufts, which are great with epic figures from Wall Paint Figures in the UK. Do go and check them out. And then for me it's always a black rim to the edges of my bases, but I think they look pretty cool. It's really fun doing these, actually something slightly different rather than just doing a full strip. And I know a lot of you requested different things, but I'm pretty happy with the way they came out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Help me out with all the things that I've named incorrectly in the comments as well. That's always good. I do love doing epic miniatures. It's always fun and a bit of a challenge to get them looking really vibrant and standing out on the tabletop with something that's so small. They are very highly detailed, and Warlord Games do a great job, in my opinion, with these. I know some people will always point out things that aren't right or something wrong with them. I have no idea on the historical accuracy of these at all, but I do know they look pretty cool, and they were definitely fun to paint up. Some people put some comments on some of the previous videos saying it'd be really fun to do Indian Wars and stuff with these as well, and that is very cool. The only issue I'd see is you only get 5 of them on the frame, so you need an awful lot of frames, and I'm not sure what you're going to do with all the rest of it and whether it is cost effective, but the miniatures aside will be really great for that, but there is only the 5 of them. But if anyone's got any great ideas how you can get around that, or maybe put it out in the comments as well, let me know. But definitely had fun doing these, and I will look forward to doing some more. As always, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and apologies if it's not the miniatures you voted for or wanted. I know I asked in the last video what people wanted. I had a few people message me as well, and it was a pretty even spread all the way along, so I kind of went with what I in the back of my head had planned anyway. And I know a few of you would like to have seen the Grenadiers and British, and I've painted so many epic strips over the years, and I still intend to do those and bring those to you, but the British would have been very much red coats with white crossbelts, and the Hessian Grenadiers, and I thought, yeah, these will be different, but essentially apart from the helmets, the headwear, they're really not, and they would be so similar to the last tutorial, which was the Americans. It's blue with lots of white, and if you want to paint those, I would just recommend exactly the same method apart from the headwear. So I probably will do those, and maybe they will come next, but that's partly why I went for something very different. I went for some skirmishing troops, and I went for the Native Americans, which is something a little bit different and a little bit cool. And I enjoyed doing them, so hopefully you've enjoyed watching the video there. If you'd like to support me, please do check out my Patreon. It really is the best way to support me financially, so I can continue to make videos like this the time that it takes to put into recording, filming, editing and all of that kind of stuff. I do it because I love it, but it does take time, and I'd love to do more and more, and the only way I can do that is through Patreon and having more people supporting me. It won't be for everyone, and many people will think they shouldn't support me, and that's absolutely fine. I will still continue to put out these free videos, but for the people that would really like to see more of them more often, the only way I can expand and make more videos, go up to that 3rd video a week or even a 4th, would be through support, through funding. I'd have to make it my job there, or at least balance it more with my commission painting. So that's the way it is, really. But any support is greatly appreciated, even if it's just commenting, liking and subscribing and all of that stuff, or checking out my sponsor for the channel, Counterattack Bases. That's a really nice way of supporting the channel as well, because it helps another small business out and lets them know you've come by me. There's no link for them, unfortunately, that tells them that. So if you drop in the comments with your order that you come by me, that's really good. Check out all of the other links I have as well, including the affiliate link to Warlord Games, which is another little way of indicating that you've watched this video and you've gone to Warlord Games via me. I don't get any money back from it from Warlord Games, but at least they know by sending me stuff that I can do videos like this with, that they will get customers back their way. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.